Hey, this is Tara.
This is Jen.
And we are recording live at the Caf Bar in Wakefield, Rhode Island, 119 Main Street. We just want to thank Elias and Ali Boutros for letting us host our third episode here. And we are sipping on some delicious golden milk lattes today.
And what exactly are these golden milk lattes? Because I'm not really sure. What do we think it looks like? It looks like the color of the sun.
Stephanie, you had another description.
Well, should I say that out loud?
Sure.
Okay, it does look like foamy yellow dog puke.
But it's delicious.
But
it's
it
delicious.
is anti-inflammatory, so, you know, what do you think too?
I think there's some turmeric in it.
Turmeric.
Yeah, so
Cinnamon.
Caf Bar is a brand new, so here in town, Caf Bar is the newest, coolest coffee shop around. And Tara and I believe that, you know, Go Full Amazon started at coffee. So we decided that this was going to be the place that we needed to record episode 3 with our special, awesome guest,
Stephanie
Canter. Say hi,
you.
Steph.
Hi.
We're so happy to have you here.
Welcome to
I'm
Go Full
totally
Amazon.
humbled that you would ask me to be on here as, you know, like a supporter of your Amazon squad.
Amazon Squad. Well, you are part of it.
I mean, I
Whether
have
you
the
want
shirt.
to be or not.
I have the shirt. I wear it.
This is what happens with people like us, is that we make you part of our squad, whether you want to be or not. We found you and we said, she must be one of us.
So I actually met Stephanie a few years ago.
Yeah.
We were working out at the YMCA, and I actually met your husband first.
Yep.
Because he's just one of those outgoing personalities. And
Yes.
he was like, hey, how you doing? What are you training for?
He's one of those people that talks to people at the gym in the morning. And nobody around here, like, talks to strangers, period. But he talks to strangers. And so he told me about you and, like, that he would run, like, a couple of half marathons or full marathons. And so then I saw you, and you were just, like, all business. You were interested in talking. I was like, oh, she's like me. She's like me. Because I don't go in there wanting to talk either.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, she's
I
a
know.
bad
You guys
bitch.
are starting to make my heart pink.
I know, we are. I know, and then you came and followed us to Manic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, you know what else,
yeah.
though? I had just seen you off and on at the Y a bunch, and then saw you at a soccer game. And we were on the sidelines at a soccer game, both of our kids were playing. And we were talking about, like, nursing and this and that. I'm like, oh, you could be like a school nurse and then have holidays off. And she's like, yeah, but I don't really like other people's kids. I'm like, yes, this is my girl. I'm like, who says that to someone that they don't know that well? I'm like, this is my girl right
Yeah.
here.
I know. I often say things like that, and then I think in my head, like, should I retract that?
But I, like, died laughing. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, me too.
Well,
I
I tell her all the time, like, there's a badass side to her that I am so attracted to, because, like, I am just way too, you know, I'm not that
Soft.
bad. Yeah, I'm not that badassy. I mean, maybe I am in my own head, and, you know, when I'm doing things, but, like, when it comes to, like, just letting things fly out of my mouth, like, I'm a little bit
Yeah.
more conservative sometimes. But maybe that's not even true. Some people would think I have Tourette's out of the mouth.
No,
on a
you do.
regular
I
basis.
think we both do. I think
Yeah,
there's a mutual
okay.
attraction there.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. That's true. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. And then and then when
And
yeah,
then
so,
Manic.
yeah, and then Manic. You know, it always comes back to the gym. It always
Yeah.
comes back to somehow you find your
The love
people
of-
at the gym. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you came to our gym because Steve actually
Steve
came
did.
first.
Yep, because he had gotten close with Jeff Sweeter. And Jeff recommended that he try it
Yeah.
out. Just because they had kind of bonded over, like, intense workouts. They just kind of talked about what they were doing they knew each other from Riverbend.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Back from Riverbend.
So he got him to try it, and he was like, oh, you have to do it. Tara works out there, and, you know.
because he came
so
to the
got
class.
me
I
to
think
try
I
it.
taught his first class, and I
Yeah.
remember him being like, "My wife really needs to come to this. My wife really needs to come."
You
to
know
this."
what's
And we're
ridiculous
like,
is that when I was pregnant with Axel, I said to him, I was like, you know what? When it's time to, like, get back to exercising, I think I want to try that place Manic. Like, I want to, like, shock my system, like,
Yeah.
really try something hard. He's like, I mean, I could, like, give you that stuff to do in the basement.
Yeah. You're like, yeah.
And then a couple of years later, he tries it, and he comes home, and he's like, you really got to try
You gotta
this.
try
I'm
it. Oh,
I think it's also the community, though.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we miss you.
like,
I can't wait for you to come back.
We do miss you.
Oh, I loved it. It's
Yeah.
so fun. And it's not even, so the other episode, too, where you guys were talking about the one thing that, like, something that makes it different from CrossFit is, like, the camaraderie energy and stuff. And that's actually what I like about it, because that shit makes me like uncomfortable when people are like
screaming for you.
yes,
Yeah. So well, that's
I
why
love
it's
it.
for
You
everybody.
just get down to what you're doing,
Yeah.
but then you start to get stronger in areas, and then you're like, wow,
I know. I remember
Didn't
when
I
you
could
went
do
to
that.
the like yellow kettlebell.
Yes.
Like I remember when you started with like the purple kettlebell and it matched your outfit and it was super cute.
Yeah.
And then you went to like the yellow and like the orange and I was like, oh, Steph.
know.
Steph is getting it. Like she's
still
getting
never got
into
that
it.
Bozu ball though.
That's all right.
Or the
It's still
pull-up.
there. Yeah, that's all right. We're still working on it.
I know,
There's
it's gonna be a
goals.
while before I get the pull up though,
That's
because
okay.
I have the shoulder injury.
Well, and I think this is really funny because I think that like part of what's really interesting is that we always talk about fitness maybe not have always been your thing. Like you were,
Yeah.
we talk about like we didn't, your story growing up. Like you've shared your story growing up with us, and you really kind of said that you want to talk about like how you grew up. Like we want to know about like what that was like.
I was born in Delaware. I lived there, like not for long actually. Returned there, but my dad was in the Air Force. We lived up in Rhode Island for a few years in Warwick. Ended up in Delaware, but like I was tall, always tall. But my mom was tall.
Yeah.
One thing that she did always harp on was posture, because she knew that tall girls want to like slump their shoulders to try and fit in. And
Did she come behind you and like roll your shoulders
Yes.
back?
Yes.
That's what my parents did the same thing to me all the time.
But she was like, it doesn't make you look shorter, it just makes you look like you have bad posture. Like it's not doing what you think it's going to do.
It's not shrinking
But
you.
honestly, it's like you're just trying to cower. You're trying to hide.
Fit in.
I don't know
think
if
it's
you
more of a
actually
fitting
think
in.
you're looking shorter. You're
Also,
just
it's
like,
like
I
you're
just
so
wanna
used to being seen all the time, and you just kind of, I think when you're in middle school and sometimes in high
Can I
school,
just
you
not
kind of want to be that
noticed?
shrinking violet, but when you're the tall girl, like you stand out.
Yes, exactly. And so she definitely focused on that a lot. My dad's 6'4", my mom's 5'11".
Yeah.
And that actually might have been why she put me in ballet, because she like wanted to make sure I had like the grace and the posture and stuff.
How'd that
But,
work
like,
out? How'd
it
that
didn't
work out?
I know.
Like honestly, like let's think about that movie Fantasia where there's like hippos on point, and you're like, that animal should not be on point. That's me. That animal should not be on point shoes.
You are not anything like a hippo, though.
And I got to the point where I was like, in toe shoes on point. I'm like, what? This is not my end game. This is not going to work. But I mean, that's what like all of the girls in my circle or in my mom's circle, their daughters were doing. But I did have swimming because we grew up like right on a golf course that it was like a country club with the pool and the tennis and the golf and all that. So I joined the swim team every summer and loved it. And I don't know, in the water, I was graceful and quick, and it clicked with me. But then when it got hard, when it was like, doing it year round and 5 a.m. workouts, and then your travel team is practicing at 8 p.m., I just was like burned out. I don't even know if I really was burned out or if I was just like tired of it.
I think that's
I
so
just quit.
interesting how people can find their grace in their sport. I mean, you can be like this big wrestler, and even that they find some grace when they find the right sport for them.
Yep.
I mean, for me, I was always known as like the bull in the china shop, but then really with basketball, like if you got me in a good place, I could like go weave in and out of different people and make these moves, and it was almost like my own form of ballet.
Yeah.
And
Well,
which
it's
is
like when you
swimming
can
for you.
feel comfortable and then you just can find a rhythm in like whatever it is you're doing. And it was like, I remember there was this one summer, so the stroke was butterfly, and all of a sudden it just like the rhythm clicked, and that was my stroke.
Right.
Well, it's so funny. I swam competitively growing up, and it's like it's so actually interesting to hear you talk about it because I know I always talk about the fact that like my parents put me into sports to keep me from getting into trouble, and so swimming exhausted me. So of course my parents were like, she's swimming, and I was again tall. I had these big feet, big hands, so I was basically like a porpoise. So I might as well like be in the water, but I've never been able to identify and to touch on the fact that I felt graceful in the water because like it almost bring me to tears because I never have felt graceful in my entire life. And to say that I actually did feel that way when I was swimming, you know, and I would get this rhythm in my head. And it was like I could go to my own place. And again, like we talk about like our personalities and like people, I know I have this giant big personality, but I'm way more introverted than people think. So being in a pool with just myself and my
It's
weirdo
perfect,
like
right?
like music that I would say I would have the same like humming like when
I had
do my
like
breathing.
little cadence rhymes that I would say.
It was
but in everything else, you're big.
Yeah.
But in the water, you're just long.
Yeah.
And it's like different.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I wish I had stuck with it, but I allowed myself to just feel burned out. And that was probably the first time where I was like, oh, I quit something.
And your parents allowed you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my parents wouldn't allow me.
Yeah, and I wish I had stuck with it, but now I just get to enforce things on my children.
Yeah, would you do it differently if you think about it? Like the fact that you feel like you missed out on whatever that is. Like so that story of you missing out because you wish you would have done something different or wish your parents would have pushed you because at a young age, how do you make that decision without their influence? Yep. But like, would you do that different with your kids? Because I see that even with my son. Like he's quit playing soccer all of a sudden. He's been playing it since he was 4, and I sit there and I'm like, am I failing him as a parent?
Yeah.
Because I'm not forcing him to do something that he's not enjoying.
It's a balance though, because like I want David to try all sorts of different things to find out what he loves, but I remember there was this article that came out years ago called like the Tiger Mom.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
It was I think she was Chinese.
Yes.
And she would force her daughter, who at age like 1.5, 2, very early age, to play the piano for hours every day, hours, through tears and tantrums and screaming every day, and people just punished this woman, saying that she was like a dictator and a horrible mom and unloving. But the mom, she raised a good point. She's like, your kids are going to quit everything because it's going to get tough.
Yeah.
They might be naturally drawn to something, but there's something that happens when you like work through the frustration and it clicks, and then all of a sudden you have confidence, and then you enjoy it because you feel confident. And she was like, that happened with my daughter. Like, she worked through it, she gained confidence, and then she loved it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but at the same time, like.
And I can see it differently. I see it in my son where, he wasn't enjoying it. And again, there's a piece of me too that's like, okay, there's a balance. Like at 11 years old, is it appropriate to have him be miserable every time he steps on the field? But I also know for him, like he was comparing himself to everybody else on the field, and because he didn't present as aggressive in his own mind, he wasn't as good as everybody else. Yeah. So what did I say? That comparison is a killer of joy.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, is a thief of joy. So he was already getting into that habit. So and as a parent, you sit there and you're like, so we did continue to push him to play for a little bit longer, and now. Yeah. He had to substitute with something else. So now he's moved into basketball. But what I made him do instead was now he has to become a referee in soccer. So he, gets to tell everybody what to do, which he loves to do. He gets to make some money because the kid likes to shop more than anybody I know. Yeah. So it's like, it's a win-win kind of on that side. But still, it's like, as those parents, we get really stuck in those places. Like, what do we do with this situation with the sports? Because for me, sports were everything to me. And they obviously, clearly still are. In my 40s, I'm still competing as an athlete, in my mind.
I think that's the tough thing about parenting, though, because what worked for you or what didn't work for you isn't necessarily going to be the right choice for your kids. Like, you felt the burnout, and, retrospectively, you may have some regrets, but it probably was the best thing for you. Because, I remember being burnt out and being miserable, and that leads to other physical stresses in your life.
Right.
So I think we should move more towards today. So let's talk about how fitness is in your life today.
So I don't really remember when it was that it became such a major part of my life for like a truly level-headed, healthy reasons. Like honestly, and I don't know if you guys feel this, but back before I had a lot more just confidence, I was like, yes, I'm tall, and I'll be damned if I'm ever going to be tall and big and look like a linebacker. So, I worked out for, like, vanity purposes. Yeah. I would go to the gym, and I would do cardio, and I lifted weights because I always felt like strength and muscles was sexy. Yeah. And so I don't really know when it became more of, like, I need this. Like, it feels so good.
It became more of a mental health part of your life. Yeah. There's a switch that happens.
Yeah. I work out every day. Yeah. And I notice a huge difference on the days that I don't. I work out in the morning because honestly, if it doesn't happen in the morning, it's probably just not going to happen. But I still, like, I love to run. I love to lift weights. I love doing the high intensity intervals, all that stuff.
Yeah, it seems to play a huge role in your life today and
Yeah.
how you interact. I mean, you strike me as a very strong, independent, smart woman, and I love that about you, which is why you're in our
Thanks.
tribe.
Making my heart pink.
Pink hearts all
Pink
around.
hearts.
So, being that those are the qualities I associate with you, you have 2 little boys.
Yeah.
How do you hope to influence them with your strength?
I just want them to grow up realizing that women are, like, really, really strong. Like, I want them to see me do hard things. And so I tell David, I'm like, you can do hard things. We can all do hard things, but you have to try hard things in order to do hard things. I used to take him running a lot. And it started out because Steve he was working a lot. He was a coach at the time at URI. And I got in with a group of people at work that would run at lunch, and I just never run before, and I just was like, wow, this is so simple. Like, I have this husband that works all the time. It's annoying to plan around the gym. I was doing, like, kettlebell workouts in my living room and getting bored with it. So I would put him in the jogging stroller and go for runs on the beautiful bike path and get outside.
Yeah.
And I realized that running with him on the bike path as, like, a baby and a toddler, he would just see people running and biking, and he saw his mom running, and Steve would take him to races and see me finish the Blessing and my first half marathon and all these things. And it was very important to me that I not just, like, do it as an outlet to make me a better mom, but I wanted him to, like, see me doing it.
Yeah.
I wanted him to see me come home from marathon training and, like, he would come in and sit with me while I took an ice bath, and I would, like, tell him about the run and everything. Ooh, I just laptop. I don't want him to, like, he doesn't have to, like, grow up and marry somebody like me, but I just want him to have this, I want the bar to be set high for just strength of, like, not just physical strength, but mental strength and strength in, like, your heart and how resilient you are and things like that. So.
Yeah, I think that role has changed a little bit for women, and I'm just kind of saying this out loud, but as moms raising boys, we all have boys here, is that we're showing them that, and I think that's really cool to be able to see that. Like, my kids have been raised in a gym. Like, my kids have seen my mom and their mom and their aunts are all, like, super physically fit. You know, they see that we're strong and that but again, it's not just that we're physically strong, but, like, we can get through stuff. Like, granted, they see me cry. Like, they've heard me in my room, like, crying, and they see me, but they also see me, like, dust myself off and, like, keep moving ahead too, you know? And I can handle, and we can handle stuff. Like, we just get stuff done and we handle it, through all of it.
And I think that circles back to what you were saying before when you were talking about your mom not pushing you hard enough. And, I think the one theme that keeps it coming up is how important the struggle is. Yeah. And we've talked about that in past episodes.
We always talk about the struggle.
You don't get the reward without going through some of the hurt and the pain. And I think that's what sports brings to that. And I think that's why it translates so well to people who are athletic doing really well in life.
Yeah. And what's funny is, like, now my mom, when I talk to my mom, she's like, I'm just, like, in awe of you. And she's
in awe of you.
Yeah. And of course some of that is that she's like my mom. Yeah. But she was very much, like, she just thought I had my shit together as a child because I was always very, very smart. I excelled in the sports that I was in. I was a good swimmer. And she was kind of like, I'm just going to get out of this girl's way. Like, she's about to wreck the world. And, so part of it was that, where she's like,
you were like Regina George when she gets her
hockey
stick.
Yes. So there wasn't, like, a lot of accountability for schoolwork and stuff because I just did it. I brought home nothing but A's. And so they just didn't drill it into me because they were like, oof.
Did you ever crack from that?
Oh, yes. I did in college.
So tell what happened.
A disaster.
Tell us. We want to know about the disaster.
It was a complete disaster. I got, like, completely mediocre grades because I never...
Were you slutty for a little while?
Yeah.
We all go through that phase.
Everyone goes through that phase.
I know.
Those football players, they do it to you,
No,
don't they?
I was never in football.
No?
Yeah, it's me and Steve had met in college. We never would have dated.
Because he was a football player.
I was into the frat guys.
Really?
Yeah.
You were?
Yeah.
Oh, I like.
I mean, and I supported all the frats. I didn't have one in particular. I didn't have one in particular.
You spread it all around.
But like I had never learned. I was always just did really well in all my classes, so I never learned to study. And then you get to college.
Yeah, it's a
and you're
free for
like,
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went with a fake ID from like a tiny boarding school in Vermont with a fake, and then all of a sudden like I'm in like Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a fake ID. It was like, wow.
Yeah. I went buck wild.
It was like, oh yeah.
I went buck wild, and then
Yeah.
I wish I could. Part of me, I just got to this point recently where I like made peace with this like entire decade of my life where I feel like I floundered and wasted my potential, because I realized that at some point I'm gonna be like 70, and that is gonna be a small chapter.
Oh, it's like a pebble.
Right now it feels big because it's like it was like a third of my life, but unless I let it go, it will then be half of my life.
Well, and what's the point of spending
three-quarters of my
energy?
life.
What's the point of spending energy on what happened back then? Because really, does it really make a difference to who you are today? Not.
Well, I think
really.
it shapes us, and I think it
does.
It gives you a different belief
It gives you
system
some wisdom from it.
and wisdom,
Yeah.
and I think it's good to fall down and have those little breakdowns, like those slutty moments,
Yeah.
because you learn. You're like, well, I'm never gonna do that again.
Right.
Or,
Well,
or
I don't know
maybe.
about that.
Maybe 2 more times, and then I'll learn my lesson.
Maybe a couple more times.
I know, but it was just, honestly, it was in the past year where I was like, you know what, the whole shame thing,
Yeah.
I was like dragging it with me, and then all of a sudden, it was only 10 years of my life,
Yeah.
except now it's been 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be 20.
Yeah.
So I was like, done.
Yeah, done.
Donezo.
Done.
It's going to be a chapter
Done.
instead of like the
Yeah.
book.
I was reading something interesting recently about forgiveness, and I've talked about this before with other people. And forgiveness, you know, we always think about forgiveness is, you know, you're somebody else or something like that. But really, what I think is most important today and where we're at is like that we have forgiveness of ourselves. And like
100%.
forgiveness, if you don't let go of some of that stuff, like it's like those fists that are like sitting in your gut, like fists like that
Pushing
are like
on
this.
your pelvic floor.
pushing on your pelvic floor. And if you don't like release it, like when you
Yeah.
open up your hands to release it, then you just stay stuck in that, and like you just are motivated from that
Yep.
place for so long. And I've had to do it myself. Like I mean, just those big, huge forgiveness moments, but really more for myself.
Yep.
Like the mistakes I made, the choices I made, you know, the places I put myself, and the situations I put myself in. Like you
Yeah.
know, I mean, granted, I was young and dumb, and you know, and I full on made those choices all on my own.
Yep.
Nobody forced me to do anything.
A lot of my prayers, like, recently have been like just to show myself grace.
Yeah.
Like, show yourself the
Yeah.
same grace that you would
Yeah.
show somebody else,
Well,
or
we
that
talked
you
to-
would want them to show themselves.
We talked
Like,
about that in the last episode.
Right.
We talked about is like the things that we say to ourselves.
Yeah.
We would never say them to anybody
Right.
else.
Right.
I would never
Exactly.
look at you and be like, "You were so awful in
Yeah.
college. I don't think we can have coffee anymore."
I know. I would never look at
Would you
yeah,
ever
exactly.
say that?
What kind of mother are you?
Oh my God.
What kind of mother are you? I would, you know, we would never
Never.
say that to somebody
No.
else
No.
because
No.
it's cruel.
And actually, you're such an amazing person now that those things obviously made something
Right.
great in you.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad thing.
No.
So I think it's good to forgive yourself, but I also think those bad things gave
You
you
acknowledge
something.
them.
You acknowledge
You don't
them.
bury
you learn
them.
from
I
them.
think I think they make me more relatable to people, to tell you the truth.
I mean, if
you know?
life was always easy and everything always went our way, we would never learn or grow. So you have
Yeah.
to go through the hardships and the bad things in order to grow and learn and change and adapt to
Yeah.
the way the
Yep.
world is. So I think those are good.
Yeah, for sure.
Agree.
So we should probably talk about why we brought you here.
I have no. I'm basically saying maybe we need to.
I
do this
want to
episode-
talk more.
Maybe we need to do episode 4. I'm kind of thinking. I'm
You're
like,
like,
maybe
tell
we
me
should
more
keep
about
going.
the slutty years.
I want to hear more about your drunken slutty
Tell me
years.
about the frat
Can we?
guys.
We're talking over our
not the wonder-
coffee right now.
It's
We'll be
not the wonder years. It's like the,
I know,
the
but we
slutty
all go
years.
through those years. I know.
I know, and the people that say they didn't,
Or lying.
they are lying, and they were worse than we were, for sure.
Freaks.
Wave the flag, man.
Yeah,
just
just wave it. Let it
On
go.
the front porch.
Let it go.
Let it go.
I'm telling you, and I have to say that, like, you know, I mean, I will say that after you get divorced, there may be a reoccurrence just because you're like, oh my God.
Oh, it's like an awakening?
I know.
Stella got her groove
I
back?
unfortunately did not experience that because I was breastfeeding after I got divorced. So
Oh.
there wasn't a lot of dating happening because I was pregnant with Cooper when I got separated
Yeah, but you
from my
got those
husband.
penthouse titties.
Yeah, but I was going to be like, hey, by the way, would you like some coffee? Would you like some milk? Put some milk in your coffee and beat out of my, like, my breast milk in the fridge. So, yeah, I can't say, like, in the middle of a date, I'd be like, excuse me, I need to go pump. I need to go pump in the bathroom.
Oh my God.
So it kind of, like, hindered my my nursing and my breast, my taking care of my newborn after my divorce.
Oh my
did
gosh,
not
I
allow
didn't
me to
realize you had
have
a divorce with a newborn.
well, yeah, I was pregnant with Cooper when we separated.
What?
I found out I was pregnant on Monday, and we separated he left on Wednesday the same week. Like, I almost didn't tell him I was pregnant because I was like, I don't want you to stay because of the baby, you know what I mean? But then, we had this, big whole thing. So yeah, needless to say, like, I didn't get to have that, like, talk about, like, our pelvic floors and stuff like that. Like, there was not going to be any kind of, like,
No pelvic floor practice.
there was no sluttiness happening after that. So, but my other girlfriends that have experienced some divorce are having a great time, and I'm like, damn it, I missed the slutty phase after divorce.
Wait, no, you can't get a do-over.
Could I do over? I can start
Now
over.
you just know too much.
Yeah, now I just love myself too much that I can't go to a slutty phase.
I know. As long as you got enough batteries in the house.
Well, that's all. Cheers to that.
Yeah. Honestly, I've told Steve, I'm like, if something happens, man, like, I'm not moving on. Like, I can't. I just can't.
I know, you cringe. I tell you stories and you're like, I can't even imagine.
No, I can't do it.
I know.
I would just
That's another episode.
remain alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we really did want to bring you on here for other reasons. So, but should we do it just on the second episode, or we just keep going?
I think we can keep going. Let's
Alright.
just see it. I mean, some people have said that our episode is too long, but I'm actually having a
Really?
really good time talking to you.
Oh, I didn't think it was too long.
Okay, that's good.
You know
I
who you are.
I routinely listen to like hour-long
Very good.
podcasts and stuff.
Yeah, and this is
and all that
riveting
kind of
information.
stuff.
All right, so yeah, so we should talk about really the story of like with pelvic health. I think we really want to now bring this back to like really our topic today, and it's really about pelvic health awareness, and really what I want to disclaim about this is that this is not just a women's issue. This is a men's issue too. When we talk about pelvic health, we're talking about like the muscles of the pelvic floor that support all of the organs in your body, and also support really like your base of support. So your base of support, which is your hip area, basically sets you up for whether you can walk funny, you stand funny, you move funny. This is your entire like basically center of your body that makes you function on a good or bad basis is really what it is. So when we think about it, it's not just, about your private parts, because that's not what it is. Granted, that's how you access some of these muscles, but that's not what really we're talking about here. So
I want to ask you, like, what brought you into seeking help with your pelvic floor?
So I don't actually really know if I ever knew how to like properly engage those core muscles. So like who knows how long they were just kind of weak in general. But it was after I had David, so he's 6.5 now. I went for the first time, like just a walk. I pushed him in the stroller, and I remember just feeling like my everything was just like spilling around, right? And
you had a normal pregnancy.
I had a very normal pregnancy. We had him at home, so like it was a very healthy pregnancy. There were no complications, no issues. I mean, he was 8 pounds 14 ounces. That's not like massive. It's a big healthy baby, but it's not like a hip breaker or anything. And I just like I felt like my insides were kind of like spilling around, and I never felt like I got my core strength back, but I don't know if I ever really had that much core strength to begin with, and then the pregnancy just kind of like made it very obvious. And then getting pregnant with Axel, so I showed immediately.
Yeah, you said like in 7 weeks you were like showing that you were like totally pregnant in 7 weeks.
Yes, you could tell I was pregnant at like 7 weeks.
Which the baby is like the size of like a thumbnail. Yeah.
But it was like any bit of pressure or swelling, my everything would just give out. And I had a checkup with our midwife, and so she would come to our house for all of my checkups and stuff. It was awesome. And she was asking me, like, how's everything going? It was pretty early on, and I was like, the only thing I can think of is when I lay on my side, I feel like my organs are literally spilling onto the bed.
Yeah.
And she asked if I had ever been checked for, and I always feel like I'm pronouncing this wrong, diastasis
recti.
recti.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been checked for that. Like,
so that is when your linea alba splits down the middle of your abdomen. So there's that bacon piece of when your of your abs.
Yep.
That big one in the middle. So that what happens with pregnancy. It stretches out and it loosens.
And
up.
it can like
you can
tear,
be like, oh yeah,
right?
it can tear, yeah.
And then that whatever that tissue is, it can't necessarily attach on its own. So I hadn't, but I was like showing enough that it was really kind of hard to test for that. She had me like flex, and you could see a big puffy line down, so you could kind of see how it was separated. But I was pregnant, so like it separates when you're pregnant. So then Axel was 11 pounds, and
giant baby.
Yeah, like big. But I had a really awesome postpartum, my recuperation from that was.
And you vaginal
yeah,
delivers for both,
and at home as well.
Yeah,
and so then trying to get back into exercising after that, I just was like, I remember doing a plank and seeing my reflection, and it was like my stomach was hanging down almost like in a triangle.
Yeah,
and so I was like, God damn it, like. My abs are split in two.
Yeah.
I felt like they were like those saloon doors that just like flap.
Yeah.
And so I went to see a general surgeon, convinced that he was going to tell me I have like the worst tear down the middle of my abdomen and I'm going to need surgery. And he was like, no, it's really not bad. Like, it's really not bad. I'm like, what? How can that be?
And you're like 30. How old are you at this time? Like
at that time, 30? I was like 36.
Yeah, like 36 years old.
And I'm like, how can that be? Like, what is the problem here? I mean, I was a fit person. I had just run a marathon.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess it was like last fall or late summer, I still am in contact with our midwife. And I saw her post a story about pelvic floor PT and how we're doing such a disservice to women during their pregnancy, postpartum. It's such a disservice to women's health in general, and women who are trying to conceive.
Yeah.
Just women's health in general. In general, we're doing a disservice to women by not talking about this. So I knew that you were in PT school, so I asked you about it, and you're like, "Well, what do you know?"
I know.
Yeah, and so I think I got an appointment with
right
her,
away. Yeah.
like the next week.
Well, and this is what I love. I mean, I'm sorry that it was so hard for you and you went through all this stuff, but this is exactly why I'm like, oh my God, this is why I went back to school in my later part of my life, so that I feel like there's something that I'm supposed to do with this. I'm supposed to, like, I feel like this is my voice. You know what I mean? Is that like, why is it that we as women and men in our 30s and our 40s are peeing our pants, are almost shitting our pants when we're squatting heavy as athletes, like all of these things that are happening in that region, that's not normal.
No.
And nobody wants to be like, oh, by the way, but if your trap is wrong, like if you have a problem with your trap, or if you have like a problem with your bicep, like you would go get help.
Right.
But the fact that it's in your like genitals or it's in your asshole, like nobody wants to talk about it.
Right. I know.
Well,
I like talking about things no one wants to talk about. So
I've always been under the impression that, like peeing my pants was normal, and I've been doing it for years.
Yes.
And I think there's probably a lot of people out there.
I know.
Well,
I feel like I need
remarkable
a T-shirt at the gym to be like, peeing your pants is
not
normal.
cool. Like, was it Billy Madison?
Yeah.
Peeing your pants is cool.
It is
Peeing
not
your
cool,
pants is not cool.
and it's
cool.
not normal.
Yeah. But what was remarkable is I didn't realize how many other issues I had that were connected to it.
Yes.
So this whole time I was just like, oh my God, okay, so I didn't tell you guys this story. I went to Vegas with my girlfriends, and
Slutty phase reincarnated.
No, this was the mom trip.
We wanted to make sure
this is like going to sleep in super cozy beds and eat really good food and then go out and act like you're going to go out until 3 a.m. and then you
Yeah. You're really at the Bellagio and shopping.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember, so we went to the pool, right? And I was like, oh my God, I seriously have to poop so bad. And I looked like pregnant. We were literally at the pool. I'm at a pool in Vegas with a beer in my hand. And somebody asked me if I was pregnant. And I was like, I'm in Vegas with a beer, my friend. I'm not pregnant. And I was like, oh my God. And all I could think of was to say, I'm not, but you should have seen how pregnant I looked before I took a shit in that bathroom over there.
Where they would have been like,
Isn't it lovely when you can go out in public and you don't care about saying anything to guys because you're like, I'm not trying to date you.
Pregnant with a deuce.
It's just a dump. Yeah. You want to make out? No? Is it cool? I'm married anyways. Yeah. So anyways, when I went for my first appointment, she's asking me all these questions, and I'm like,
This is when you saw Michelle.
That matters. It was the stress incontinence. So, like, having to pee all the time.
Yeah.
Like, it was an emergency all the time when I had to pee. Pooping. I either couldn't go, or I was like, this is about to get ugly.
Yeah.
Pain during sex. So not even necessarily, like, pain. Just, like, the nagging kind of, like, discomfort where you're... I don't even know what to compare it to because it doesn't compare to anything.
But it's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
Where you're just... You're a little tense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're always...
You can't relax.
You have a hard time relaxing.
Yeah.
So that was an issue as well. What else? I can't remember. So she kept asking me all these questions. I'm like, I can't believe this is all connected. I can't believe this is all connected. And, I mean, the first time she did, like, more of an internal exam, she's like, you're really dysfunctional down there. And I was like, I was picturing Steve, like, popping out going, amen, sister. I was like, oh, my God, if he was here, he would probably be like.
He's like, we already know this.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just remarkable. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, I thought all of those things were just, like, my cross to bear because I'm the one who has the babies.
Yeah. But I wonder, how was it with, I mean, and Steve could probably talk about this too, but like how, for him, it must have been really interesting for him to be like, okay, well, I'm not doing something wrong. And like how can we help this together? And like, how did that change your relationship? Because I'm sure the dysfunction affected your relationship.
Yeah.
But then also the solution,
Yes.
Being a team, I mean, you guys are so great together as a team. Like, I can only imagine that he must have been like, okay, well, let's figure this out together,
Yes.
you know, because he has to do his part too, you know?
I know. I mean, I think it was like a little mystical to him at first. You know, I would kind of tell him everything that was going on because I was like, my mind was kind of blown by it all.
Yeah. And then he's probably like, okay, stop.
I think they're always mystified by that area.
Yeah. But I mean, when it made so much sense to him. I mean, he appreciates the whole concept of like, this is just a system of muscles.
Yes.
Right.
And
again, like we talk about it, like if you had your rotator cuff,
yeah, you would
if
go
there was a
down.
problem with your rotator cuff, and there's like, you know, how many muscles in your rotator cuff?
There is, but
You
I haven't
know.
gotten it fixed yet, so I don't know. Maybe that's not a good example.
That'll be episode 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you think about that, like the cohesiveness and the
Yeah.
synchronicity that happens in your rotator cuff is the same thing that happens in this region with
Yep.
those 7 muscles that like support your pelvis.
And then things start to like compensate for it, and
Yes.
they just
Yeah,
they
and then
atrophy.
your organs are surrounded by their own like visceral like system, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, there really is. If you think about it on a scientific level and take away where it is on your body, you would never treat another part of your body this way.
Right.
Never.
And I also, I mean, I never had like issues with, you know, like ovarian cysts, like anything like that. I
Yeah.
always had pretty easy periods.
Yeah.
But I had a hard time getting pregnant with David and a hard time getting pregnant with Axel. And when we were trying to get pregnant with Axel, I used to swear that like my insides just like never settled back into their appropriate place.
Yeah.
I just had this weird feeling because I always felt like things had shifted around. Steve might kill me for this. So I was like furiously doing like the tests for like ovulation and stuff like that. And he had to travel for work. He was like flying out to Arizona. And David was home. He was like a toddler. And I was going to ovulate. I was like ovulating that day. So I was like, no, homie, you're not going until I get a little, until I get what I need. So all the time, you know, we had been just having traditional, like just sex, and like whatever angle it was going in, I don't think it was
Hitting the right spot.
hitting the right spot.
Yeah.
So I had him do his business in a glass jar. And then, like, I took one of those, you know, those syringes that you give kids medicine with?
Yeah.
I had a brand new one. I put it in boiling water, and I literally, like,
Turkey-basted
myself. Yes. And then I did supported, like, headstand, like, at when you, or shoulders.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
sat with my
you had
legs
your pelvis up.
inverted, and that's the month I got pregnant with Axel. When, like, I was kind of doing it, when there wasn't, I swear that was an issue at the time.
Yeah, I'm sure, because everything was probably not at the right level, and you had to probably some blockage in that area.
And who knows, like, how just kind of
Yeah.
upset my
Yeah.
system was.
Yeah, well, we've talked.
Which
You and I
now
talked.
is so much clearer.
Yeah.
When I think about how quickly I went through the PT, and within, like, I can't remember the specific dates, like, within 6 weeks for sure, I got my period back after 3 years.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later got pregnant.
I know. Well, that's a great.
Without
Remember you and I talking about this, and I was like, oh my god, think about. And I'm not making statements to the world about like replacing traditional medicine or like that. Like I want to make sure I'm very clear about that. But like how do you not hear a story like yours?
Yeah.
And not think that like the amount of drugs and hormones that women are using to get pregnant and conceive, might just be some pelvic floor dysfunction.
Right. It could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it is. There could be some
and
real,
it's a very,
but like, can you imagine?
If it's not, the worst thing that happens is you strengthen a really important key part of your body and learn a lot about how your system is supposed to work together.
I think non-invasive is probably the best place to start.
Non-invasive, exactly.
Yep.
Versus doing drugs, because with everything that we do, you give a drug, there's always going to be another side effect.
And as an anesthesiologist, nurse anesthetist,
people are going to get really bad if you call me.
Sorry. But you're the drug pusher. Yeah. It's interesting for your side of it, because that's really what you do for a living is, push your medication.
Push medication.
Yeah.
I don't say I necessarily agree with it. I mean, that's one of the things that I get frustrated with healthcare now. I love what I do and I love helping people, but I think a lot of the things that we're missing in healthcare is preventative care and treating the root of the problem. And we're just constantly throwing meds and surgeries at people. And yes, some people do need that, but I think there's always a better answer in the long run to prevent that
from happening again.
Yeah.
I mean, like I wish that it was top of mind for more like OBs.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think and I think we've talked about this too, is that, part of my role at the hospital and something that is really important to me is that, I want to make sure that, unlike myself, who delivered 2 babies at the hospital, I had a psych consult to make sure that I didn't have postpartum depression, and I had a lactation consultant to make sure I could feed my child. Yeah. But never once did someone come and talk to me and be like, oh, that whole area, that just got completely destroyed by birthing your children, you can fix that. Like, no one ever said to me anything like that. And I'm like, that is a disservice that we're doing to not only the women, but like their partners, because this is sexual health. This is not just pelvic health. This is like how, you can now transfer them into your relationship. And like, this is so much bigger than just
it
like
helps with intimacy
issue, everything.
Well, I think you and I have talked about this, and I think this is a great point you're bringing up, because you have told me that this is not limited to people who have vaginal births. This extends out to males, females.
And it's not just for older people. This is not an older person's problem.
This is something that should be brought up by our gynecologist at our regular year visit. It should be brought up in our PCP visit.
Yep. Yeah. 100% agree.
Yeah, or like when you go to those birthing classes beforehand, there's so many opportunity for education, and we miss the boat on education because, it's not paid for.
And I mean, eventually we all, God willing, you end up like a 65-year-old woman wearing Depends and pissing herself all the time.
And it's the men too, because this affects their prostate. Yep. So this affects their erectile dysfunction. I mean, this is not, this is not a women's issue.
Right.
It really is, it's both. And I think it's really important to make sure we know that.
I remember going to Launch, the trampoline park, and you could just... I mean, like no moms wanted to participate because it's like
no, unless they were black pants.
Right. I mean, I took David and I knew ahead of time I wore a panty liner because I was like, I want to go jump with my kid.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, we just did the CrossFit Open, and the third workout was double unders, which is jumping rope, and I had to prepare for that exercise.
By
I was like, okay,
dehydrating yourself.
I had to dehydrate myself. I didn't drink coffee. I wear a tampon. I know it's the wrong hole, but I think for me it puts pressure upward that I need. And I wore my black pants. And then I got there and everyone was wearing black pants. So I'm like, okay, this is not just
I know.
Yeah.
It's not just me.
Yeah. Well, we so appreciate you sharing your story. I mean, that was so important. I mean, we love you, of course, as a person, but we just knew it was we wanted something that was relatable, and here is a young, beautiful, healthy, fit mom that like had this experience. But what I also really love about your story is that it was 6 weeks of treatment. Yeah. Like, this was 6 weeks of treatment that fixed years of dysfunction. Yeah. Like, is that everybody's story? Maybe not. But the fact is that it's a very simple, easy fix if you participate in the
and now solution. I learned the appropriate, like, I also learned stretches and exercises and, like, just like in getting a deep tissue massage, she got me back to a good baseline of like muscular, whatever you call it, I don't know, health or like
tone.
And then from there, she's like, now you're going to learn how to engage those muscles and then do a proper Kegel.
Yeah.
And then do like the mind-body connection and really like feel the focus. So now I've learned how to do it. So now I run on the treadmill and I know how to pull up through like my transverse abs, like really pull them in, and I can run and I don't pee myself.
Well, and I think the thing too about being fit, you know, again, who goes to the gym and says, you know, I'm going to really work my transverse abdominis?
No.
People don't even know what the fuck a transverse abdominis is. They're like, I don't know where that is. Like somewhere like down there, you know what I mean? And we go and we work the abs that you can see.
Yeah.
So you really want to do those like, you know, the six pack. Like, well, yeah, that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about like, you know, deeper
I don't think
muscles.
people also realize that that's connected to your pelvic floor.
No, of course
not. I never would have thought that. And
Do you really
I'm
have
very familiar with anatomy, but
Yeah.
I never connected pelvic floor with my abdominals.
Yeah.
Ever. And I'm sure most people don't.
No.
Yep.
No, it's really fascinating. Yeah, it's what we're doing right here, trying to spread the word.
I know. So it was a good story. I mean, I personally was second time.
Giant hands.
I was shocked. I really was shocked at how well it worked. So.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
So it all worked out perfectly for a reason.
See, and it always does.
Yeah,
We talk about that all the time, like the
Is it
the
kismet?
messenger.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, the
Kismet?
the messenger always shows up when you need to hear the message.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what I always believe that. In my you know.
Yeah, before we go, I kind of want to give your husband a shout out. One of the things
yes.
I wanted to talk to you about was I love the passion that you and your husband share. I mean, Jen and I have always talked. I'm like,
He's
I want
hilarious.
him to follow us around town. And
Seriously, just cheer us
just,
on.
cheer us on.
Yeah.
He's such a motivating person. So can you tell me a little about what his name is? Like, tell people out
Yep.
there what his name is, what he does.
Yeah. So his name is Steve Canter, and he really is just the most uniquely like positive, driven, disciplined person I've ever met. He's always been like that, and you could ask even back into his college days at Virginia Tech. There's just something about him. He's just incredibly driven. He likes to he always wants to maintain a little bit of an underdog fire to him, and I think people wonder if he's like that all the time, and he seriously is.
Yeah, tell us a story about when you go to the gym. And stuff like that.
So he wakes up at 4 a.m. and his alarm goes off, and it goes, you have 10 seconds to get out of bed, and then it starts counting. Is this guy Jocko Willink?
Oh yeah.
And he has an alarm clock. That's what his alarm clock does. So every morning at 4 I hear, you have 10 seconds, and then the guy starts, and then he starts berating you if you don't get out of bed. But I never hear that because Steve gets out of bed. So he goes down into the kitchen. He does some work for Canter Zone because he's also like a performance consultant and a keynote speaker and a personal coach, which has been so perfect for him because...
Oh my God, we love it. I mean, I get messages from him and he's like, go get him, girl, you're awesome. I'm like, can you just follow me around?
He's so great.
I love it.
But I mean, he was always he was a coach when I met him, and so for so many years, and we always thought it was the love of football, but it was the love of the development and the relationship with people, and identifying the goals and the challenges and then working through it, and then seeing people when they achieve something really hard. So that's what he loves.
Yeah.
So we end up back in Rhode Island, and I don't know, it just kind of evolved naturally. The timing was perfect.
Which is great.
It evolved naturally for him. So, this one morning he's up at 4 a.m. and I wake up at 4:15, and I work out at 5. I was heading to Manic. I was walking out at 4:45, and I was still kind of waiting for my coffee to kick in. And he always gives me a go kill it. Go shred it. And this one day he goes, go take a shit up its back. And I'm like, God, I don't even know if I want to do that, but...
do you ever just flip him off though and just I'm all done with do you ever have to be
we've had
can you
some
take
moments.
it down a notch?
We've had some moments. He's gotten to the point where he actually...
You're like,
he's
I
gotten
just
to the
don't
point
want to be
where
cheered today.
He realizes that he's unique.
Yeah.
And he also realizes that's a good thing.
Yeah,
it's
it is a good
imagine
thing.
if everybody was like
No,
that.
he's the best.
So I was like, hey, dude, I like to nap, and you need to be okay with that.
Yeah.
So we've gotten to the point where it's I'm not a total loser because I like to take 3-hour naps. I'm just I just need more sleep than you.
Yeah. And it's okay that you want to take a nap.
Yeah. He is incredible because he sees strength from so many different ways. So just recently, for example. So I mentioned earlier that, got my period, got pregnant 2 weeks later, And then, of course, you guys know that we lost the baby beginning of March. And he said to me, like, the most just honest and sweet thing, because it was hard for him, too, to watch me go through that, like, physically and emotionally and all those things. And he was like, I'd like to think that I'm tough. He's like, I don't think I could have handled what I just saw happen. And so he also sees, like, just not physical toughness, but mental toughness. I mean, he's been saying to David since he was a baby, since we were in Virginia Beach, we moved when he was 9 months, I would hear him on the baby monitor saying, we've got to be physically, mentally, and emotionally tough. And he would say things. And we would also say, like, who's the most beautiful woman in the world? It's your mom. Who do we have respect for? Your mom. Like, he would say, and he says these things when he doesn't know I'm listening.
Yeah. So he does it for, like, that is who he is.
He drills it. He's all about, like, repetition. That becomes your reality.
Yeah.
And so he...
See, we really do.
Really
can he follow us around and say the same things to us?
He is really, really special.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a high-performance household to be in, I gotta be honest.
There's some days we're like, can we just wear fuzzy jammies and just sit on the couch and eat ice cream all day long?
No,
Is that allowed at the Canter Zone?
It's a tough environment, but that's good.
I know, there's sometimes where, I have to tell him, I'm like, I'm just going to believe because you believe, because I'm not really sure I'm there yet.
Yeah.
And that's, but I think he's okay with that.
I mean, he was like my doula, basically, because I had both babies at home, like in a living room with a midwife, with 2 midwives and him. Yeah. And that was it. Yeah. And like...
He's unique.
He was really he's a special guy.
We love you, Steve.
We love you, Steve Canter. And actually, I hired Steve, so he is my life coach.
He's going to be
now.
our podcast life coach forever. And then he's going to take over my dating life. I told him he could take over my dating life because I think I need his help.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you feel
he never dated anybody before me.
Oh, well, then maybe I think you will.
So I don't know.
Good at that.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you need some motivation in your life, or you need some help, and you're trying to start up a business, check out Steve Canter at the Canter Zone. And thank you for listening to episode 3 and listening to Stephanie Canter's story. And we're going to end, as we always do, with a little quote.
Here we go. Let's stop kidding ourselves. As human beings in the world right now, you cannot love too much. And loving doesn't make you weak or overly romantic. It makes you a goddamn warrior.
Yes. Amen.
Amen. That was so fun.